In the 19th century, Jefferson City needed another source of education besides the private schools that were already in the area. In 1838, Jefferson City's first public school building was opened at the site of current Simonson 9th Grade Center. It became known as the House on Hobo Hill. Authors and former JCPS teachers Suzanne Richter and Laramie Thompson share their knowledge of the school's history.
The house on Hobo Hill was a much older building. It was the first building that the district had, and it was really kind of a shack. In fact, after they built the next building, in which I can't remember, that was given to the African Americans. But the building, I mean, there were big slats in the wall, so it was cold in the winter, and finally, I think vandals burned it down. But that was the original house on Hobo Hill. Simonson came later.
Well, I think, at first it was optional. It was clearly an attempt to educate the blacks of the community. I don't know that it had nearly the importance that school has today. I think it was just clearly people in the community who knew that without education, this town was going nowhere. I mean, the town was, 17 years old? So it was very early in Jefferson City's history.
In the beginning, attendance was low due to the many German private schools in the area. Over time, the public school system slowly began to grow.
When they started, a lot of kids didn't go to school. Part of it was because they needed to be at home to help, or because they were going to the German school, or because education wasn't something a family could, and when I say afford, I mean they couldn't afford for their kids not to be helping at home.
Sadly, the legacy of the house on Hobo Hill was short-lived after vandals set fire to the building. After the loss, the community needed a school in order to further the education of its young people. In 1891, the Jefferson City Junior College on East Miller Street was opened. The community's population quickly spiked, and a new school would be needed to house the incoming students. In 1905, the Simonson building was built and opened to the public. According to Thompson and Richter, the Roaring Twenties had significant impact on the students and their traditions at Simonson.
When the new high school came about, it seemed to be, well, with the 20s, a time of prosperity because they had the money to do this. And I had a friend who went to high school there, and they had a smoking lounge for students, and the high school kind of mixed a little bit with the junior college, but it seemed to be a time of prosperity and all that new room now for the students.
In those early years, the women were just pretty little fixtures. And there were tea parties and picnics and so much attention paid to the prom queen. But it was interesting to watch the female students take on a more productive role in things like student council and the JETS, which was just a huge organization.
Although the events of World War II happened thousands of miles away from Jefferson City, the war effort still had a tremendous effect on the community.
The kids were drafted on their 18th birthdays, so some of them went off to war before they'd actually graduated. I think the school was very supportive of the war effort. The students were. Lots of letter writing and packages, and it was pretty similar to the whole nation. It was a very unified approach.
By the 1960s, the community had once again grown, and overpopulation within Simonson became a problem. So, in 1964, students in grades 10 through 12 began attending Jefferson City High School, while freshmen stayed at Simonson. Legendary football coach Pete Adkins and former student Terry Beatty discussed their time at Jefferson City High School.
The biggest thing that we seen transpire in that building once we moved over there was the fact that we had a faculty at that time was second to none in the United States. It was outstanding because what had happened, they closed down the junior college and a lot of those teachers all stayed at the high school level. And then with the new ones they hired for the bigger building and that we were in, why we had an outstanding faculty. And the name of the game in those days was the fact that every department in that school had great teachers, and each department tried to be better and outdo the other departments. It was a friendly rivalry and something that it made that school great, it made our students great, and it's something that I would never forget and was lucky to be a part of.
Like World War II, the Vietnam War was fought on foreign grounds. However, the war still brought about many troubling hardships for the community.
A lot of, when they were old enough, there were some guys that were opting to sign up, and that was, I knew some guys that signed up and went over and didn't come back, and that was disheartening and scary, and the world as a whole, we weren't sure all of us were going to make it, you know, even though that war wasn't going to come over here. But when you're that age, you don't know that much about the world and what's going on. So that was a scary time. I remember that well. My father was a policeman, and he had to handle some riots and stuff going on then. So it was something.
In the 1950s, as a result of the Supreme Court's decision on the Brown v. Board of Education case, integration was implemented in public schools across the country. Strikingly, there were very few major conflicts in regards to the arrival of the new students in Jefferson City schools.
Well, we were all lumped together. I mean, there was no, from the get-go, there was no separation. And some of my best friends were black girls, and I grew up on Lafayette, and I had no problems, and I didn't see many problems in school. I mean, we were all, everything together. So I don't know that that impacted us much.
You know, that was coming on when I came to Jeff City. We had the Lincoln Lab School, and most of the blacks in town were going to that school. We didn't have them at the public schools yet. So I got to witness and be a part of that change which took place. And eventually, well, of course, Lincoln Lab closed, and all of the public schools, you know, had all the black kids in it, and that was good for our schools, certainly good for our athletic teams. And if they were good enough to play, they played. If they weren't good enough to play, they sat on the bench like anyone else. And so we kept it pretty competitive, and it worked out great, and we traded them all alike, and we can even go back to the times when we had trouble feeding our teams in certain restaurants in the state of Missouri because we had blacks on the team, and some of them didn't want to feed the blacks in their restaurants, and therefore we would just tell them, you either feed the whole team or you don't feed anybody. And that's the way we approached it, and it worked out good.
In the past 50 years, many exciting changes have taken place at Jefferson City High School, including the introduction of Nichols Career Center, as well as multiple renovation periods. Longtime social studies teacher David Gale recalls his past experiences at JCHS as a teacher and former student.
When I went to school here, it was just 10 through 12. We were in this building. Ninth graders were in a different building. And when Nichols opened, they brought the ninth graders over because they had more space. So you were able to have all 4 grades in the high school for a time, and until I think about the mid-90s, when they built the middle schools and they took the ninth graders back out of the high school.
As the community continues to increase in population, Jefferson City High School is expected to experience overcrowding. To compensate, the community approved 2 bonds, one for the renovation of JCHS and the other for the construction of Capital City High School. Principals Ben Meldrum and Bob James discussed the splitting of the schools.
You can't really speak about traditions at Jefferson City High School without beginning with J Pride, and that's kind of that championship tradition, not just on the football field, baseball field, or on our cheerleading team, but in our classrooms. We have a wide variety of programs here in Nichols Career Center, broadcasting and media, speech and debate, our student council and key club. We have so many traditions, not even to mention our Marcullis, our red and black newspaper, our dances, our assemblies. All of those things kind of lay a foundation for a very rich tradition that doesn't just have an impact on our students and community at the time that they occur, but kind of resonate with our community and our alumni for years. And so much so that we have a strong tradition of returning to our community and supporting Jefferson City High School.
The addition of Capital City High School will bring about some new competition for Jefferson City High School.
Well, we have recently joined a conference that will consist of Jefferson City High School, Helias High School, the 3 Columbia schools, and Sedalia High School. So obviously there's going to be some competition there, and competition's not always bad. Hopefully some friendly competition, but things that kids that can, that our community can get behind and hang on to for years to come. Our job is to try to put together the best product that we can and put it out there, whether it's in the classroom or on the, marching in the band or singing in the choir or on the football field or baseball, soccer, whatever the case may be. And so, I'm a competitive person, so a little competition doesn't necessarily bother me for sure. But, we want it to be something that our kids can get behind and get excited about. And I'm sure it's going to be built up, in some areas more so than others, but I think, again, our kids and our students at both schools will be able to do that. But at the end of the day, we're all part of Jeff City Public Schools, and we want the best for both schools, but we want to win.
The introduction of a new high school has been long anticipated. Many are wondering what that means for J Pride and all of the traditions that have become so ingrained in the school and community. Many people are also very excited to see what new opportunities arise with the opening of Capital City High School.
It's going to have the flavor of our community. I believe that a lot of our traditions have the flavor of our community, so I don't think they're going to be 100% dissimilar, but I do know, and I think it's healthy for them to establish their own traditions. So while maybe the timing is similar or some aspect of their tradition might be similar, I hope that it's 100% cavalier for their sake. I would never want them to feel like any sort of second class, I guess. So I hope that they establish rich traditions that they can build a community with.
The principals have high hopes for the new high school and what it will bring to the community.
I think the biggest hope is that we put together and put a product out there that our students can be proud of and that our community can be proud of, and I think that we have a lot of momentum right now behind the opportunity that the second high school creates. And I think just putting together something that kids want to come to school every day and kids want to be a part of it, and then our parents and our community will support, and it's a great challenge, and we're going to try to do that every day, whether it's the work that we do in the classroom, whether it's building the climate and culture that we want at the school, and we're going to challenge our staff. That's our goal, is to create something that kids really want to be a part of. And I think the long-standing tradition here at Jeff City High School has been great, and I think they've done a great job. All the folks along the way, myself included as a student and a teacher here and stuff, have helped to shape and mold that. But this is a chance to start over and do it again. And so I just want it to be something that everybody is proud of and that the community's proud of, and that they can say, yeah, we have 2 high schools in Jeff City and they're both thriving to be great.
Throughout its history, Jefferson City Public Schools has been faced with many difficulties and challenges. No matter what the future holds, one thing will remain: J Pride never dies. Reporting for Nichols Student News, I'm Caitlin Mulcahy with story editors Gabriel Vinson, Brendan Bearhorse, and Daniel Hayden.